Hello, my name is David Jalali. I'm the author of the book Terrorism, the Truth, available on Amazon. I have said that in my previous videos that I wrote the book um, to help fight the ignorance in the society about the issue of terrorism. Now, I know I have gone over this in my previous videos, but I think it's proper to properly define terrorism again quickly, and then we go talk about subjects of the actions that we can take to eliminate or reduce terrorism in the world to make it a safer place for all of us. First of all, I would like to say that the reason I'm putting out these videos is not only to market my book and encourage people to at least read part of it, but also is to promote safety and security for all the people all over the world, especially in the United States where I live. As I've said before, I like where I live, and I believe United States is a beautiful country as far as geographic characteristic goes, and the people, just like people all over the world. And since I've lived here most of my life, and I've been educated in America, lived here close to 50 years, 50, and since I was a teenager. And so I enjoy the place, and I feel that now that I have time and retired, I can do something to make America safer and the world a safer place. Yeah, and result, America is safer too. As Martin Luther King well said, no man is an island. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. I believe that is true, especially now more than ever. Therefore, terrorism is defined by FBI and various definitions. I'm going to use commonality between all these definitions to come up with a common definition as I have stated in my book. It is called terrorism is use of violence against people, ordinary, against everything, in general, use of violence for a political aim. So that entails assassination, wars, occupation, invasion, discrimination, bigotry, and basically harassment, to use the violence for where the end is to meet, to have a political aim. And everything I said, when it's used for a political aim, is considered terrorism. So war is a terrorism because it is for political aim, or invasion, occupation, even discrimination, building a nation based on one religion, and then supporting that cause is racism. No matter if it's brought, I personally do not think God is racist. If God is supposed to love all his or her creatures, like human, animals, and the nature is all created by God. If we believe in that, how could God favor one segment of his creatures versus the other one based on their belief, or based on their religion or national origin? So that if somebody believes that, then believes God is racist, which I don't think God is racist. So even discrimination based on to build a nation based on one religion is considered racism and terrorism and supported terrorism. So having said that, and the terrorist is the one who conducts these acts, and the ones supporter of terrorism are the one who supports these kind of activities. Okay, that's terrorism. Now, how can we make? Why does terrorism in one location of the world makes it unsafe for others, and how we can make it safer? See if, for example, and who is the world biggest terrorist? I've proven that before, but then again, it comes up because as we look in these issues, look at the wars. Which country has had more wars against other nations within the past 100 years? So let's just go past 100 years or even past 50 years. Which country has had more wars against other nations and always been on one side of the war under the false pretext of human rights, freedom, and democracy? Because look at the wars, for example, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Korea, dividing the country too, and actually justification for being a North Korea existence is a South Korea, which is supported by United States, and occupation of Japan, Germany, and 150 over 150 countries with over 700 military bases. And we hear about these story soldiers, they get drunk, they go rape somebody, or in Afghanistan, in the middle of the night, break into somebody's home, kill all the families. We have heard a lot of this all over the internet. If you go to do a search on Google and YouTube, you find them videos and you can watch them. There are 14 years old get raped in Iraq or in Afghanistan by soldiers who are invaded the country and occupied the country. Which soldiers are those? Those are American soldiers. And if you don't see, I use we, even so um, American, I, because I don't consider myself, I don't support these kind of activities. I don't support invading a country, raping and killing women and kids because of to want to make money over arms and profit for the companies. I do not support that. I do not agree with that. Therefore, I cannot say we because if I say we, then I'll be one of them, but I'm not. I don't consider myself. I don't support those kind of activities. And whatever I say in these videos now, I've said it repeatedly, is for people who are looking for peace and security for everybody. My intentions from enlightening people is to enlighten them so they can vote correctly and they can choose the right one. I know it's very hard because most of the senators that we have and the presidents, look at the presidents all the way from World War II, even going back, most of them, the biggest, mm, uh, I mean, our first president after independence, 1776, was George Washington. He was the biggest slave owner. And thereafter, they had the slaves until 1880, believe was 1885, 86, you know. Um, that's almost 100 or 100 years after independence, there were legally slaves in this country. And the presidents basically support, and they were slave owners themselves. So, see, now which country in the world had the slaves 500 years ago? Only were maybe British in their colonies, and British are our forefathers. So, they're not that far. It says, apple that doesn't fall from the tree apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so they're considered our forefathers. So they were slave owners. They brought actually slaves here, and the country, when it got independent, carried that over for another 100 years up to 1960s. Blacks had to sit the back of the bus, couldn't go to the same school. Which country did that in the world? So many. And even then, past 100 years, look at the war in Vietnam. Then you have Korean War. You have East Timor War in Indonesia. Then you have Nicaragua. You have South American wars. You have the invasion of Cuba. You have all these coups d'etats, which are democratically elected governments, were toppled to put a puppet dictator in place like Iran, Guatemala, Nicaragua, or starting with Hawaii, 1893, then goes all the way to Chile, back in 70s, and then you have as late as invasion of Iraq, Afghanistan, in Yemen, and Syria, trying to topple the government of Syria recently, and then coup d'etat in Egypt, put a general in power. See, all of these, who was one side of these? CIA, United States, and the colonialist powers in Europe. Now, see all of this. So we figured that why this is now in the past, because after World War II, United States and a few Europeans, they got the veto power and they got the atomic bomb and they got power, and most of the world didn't have these weapons. And like United States or even Europeans could go into country like in South America and demolish them and hit them. They couldn't reach United States. And in Middle East, in East Asia, in West Asia, because of natural resources. But times have changed now. In the past, they would do this and they couldn't harm us in United States because maybe they couldn't reach us. But now technology have changed, and Korea from the other side of the world can reach New York or California with the atomic weapon and missiles. And in the Middle East, probably I would say, Iran is an atomic power, and in 1953 the United States toppled a democratic elected government in Iran. Dr. Mossadegh was his name, and put a Shah dictator in power. The same thing they did with Chile and Egypt in 53, and in 2000 was it 15? The same thing happens, and then in South America recently. A couple of countries, the same thing happened in Colombia, in El Salvador, in Costa Rica recently, in Bolivia. CIA helped orchestrated a coup d'etat to topple the democratically elected governments in these countries and put puppet. And there are frictions and going on in. I know the U.S. is trying to do it in Venezuela, and again in Korea, occupy half of the country and tell the Koreans that they have to hate no part of it, the other half North Korean. If there is really freedom, if America and its allies basically, and then in the same token, it supports Saudi Arabia or Bahrain, which there is never been an election there in the name of human rights and freedom and democracy. You see, that's a joke. So, but now some people may say, okay, well, we like. I guess I was reading an article in the paper that Elon Musk said, that he needs lithium from Bolivia for his cars. Battery is cheap, so he says we can have coup d'etat in any country we want because we want to get a good deal or even steal maybe at next to nothing their natural resources. Yes, some people may say that we don't care for them, because after a while people live like that, they become psychopaths and they don't care for other people. Let's assume that's okay. And they say, okay, we are powerful. We have over 5,000 atomic bombs. We have close to a $1 trillion, $1,000 billion military budget. To be exact, in 2020 is $993 billion, whereas millions of Americans live on the streets, they're starving. They can't. Not over 100 million Americans don't have medical insurance. They can't go to the doctor, and they're homeless. They can't pay for education. Somebody goes to college here. By the time he finishes from college, he may have anywhere up to $100,000 in student loans. The rest of his life, he has to work to pay that off. So that's modern slavery. Some people say, well, should we care? We are smarter than them, we're stronger, we go there and take advantage. And as long as we provide for us we don't have problem with the government. Some people say that they know it. Some people are ignorant. They don't know it. And they don't want to know it. They don't want to talk about it. And it is a statistic that 90% of people don't like to talk about politics. But as Shakespeare well said, ignorance is dark, and in a dark place, one may fall and break a leg. See, it becomes dangerous. So those people who say we don't care, they know about this situation, these atrocities that are being done all over the world in our name. They are as ignorant as the ones who do not know of these. There is no difference. Now, why? People who know that America is committing these atrocities and volunteer to go in those countries, kill and rape those people and steal their wealth, those are killers anywhere else. They don't accept, but they have families, they have relatives. If they don't get killed, a lot of them get killed in the process. If they don't, they survive. They come back here and they become a professional killer, and they go apply for a cop, to become a police or a national guard, and either work for a private contractors who support military, go to these countries and kill peasants, work for those. So he becomes a professional, or she becomes a professional killer, doesn't have any feeling, because the first, more psychologically, the first crime act, the first bad, prohibited, the act that is prohibited and is illegal and is bad and is cruelsome and is cruelty and is murder, is crime. That act, the first time one person does it, may be difficult. Some people don't care, they do it, they're crazy. But the people who are healthy, they may, or they're normal, they may be difficult for them to do it the first time. Now, the second time, the third time become routine for them, is not bad for them anymore, and they get a high of it. So they become criminals and killers, and they come to this country. They become go apply for the, because that's all they know. They go either become cop or become private contractor, mercenary, or become national guard. And those, what are those being used? They're supposed to be protecting American, but they're killers. Look at, why do you think the cops are so violent? Because most of them are military war veterans. They call them heroes, but the countries they invade, they call them terrorists, because they use violence for a political aim. And they come here because, so that's one thing. They come, the cruelty and the terrorism that is imposed on the world, peasants and third world people, to like Vietnam, East Asia, Afghanistan, Iraq, it only trains and develops as Moscow Mike, also known as Pompeo, the Secretary of United States, says. He has a video on YouTube. You can look for it. That one of the interviews said, we lie, we cheat, we steal, we train for it. So the Secretary of United States, in his own words, on a video, admits that he steals. That, and we, he says we. I don't use the we, as I said, because I don't steal, I don't lie, I don't cheat, and I'm not trained to do that. I'm by trade, education, I'm engineer, professional licensed civil engineer, state of California, for 40 years, and I never did any of those even during my course of work. And I did research when I retired, past 20 years since 2011, and wrote a couple of books and decided to put these videos. And I do reading every day, probably 4 to 8 hours. Some days 8 hours, some 4 hours, 3 hours. But then every now and then I put these videos. So Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of Defense, officially says that we train, we steal, we cheat, we train for it. And you do search that on YouTube or in Google, and you find a video, you listen to it. See, he says that, okay, so that's, and he was a military personnel. He actually went to military, so he earned his credentials, killing peasants, women and kids, and, I don't know, massacre. So he support terrorism. Now it became got, because once you get out of military, you know You do good killing those people and do a good job on killing peasants, then you get a few points. uh, Military should go to university, gets to Harvard, and they get them, and somebody who may be qualified, maybe have better grades and better cannot get in, but he gets in because he's a good killer. Anyway, so he gets in there and then he becomes Secretary of United States. So imagine what you expect from somebody. So it trains people like him when you go with these wars, these kind of terrorism against third world. That's what I'm saying. See, these are I'm going to say why it's bad. The people who say the money makes the world go around. So if we are more powerful, we go into their country and we steal their wealth and kill their peasants and rape the women and kids. And in the name of democracy, human rights, and freedom, but we install a puppet dictator like Saudi Arabia, MBS, who butchers journalists in their embassies, and Trump and U.S. administration is their best friend and they support them. You see, but all of these kind of activities is going to make our world here in America insecure. Now, why do I say that? Because now the technology has changed, and all these countries that we have done these, not we. United States has done these to them over the past 70 years, like Vietnam, like South Central America, like in East Asia, like some of them, like Iran, they are atomic power now. They have like hundreds of atomic bases, and you know atomic the missiles that can go very accurate, and you've seen in the past, and they're willing to hit back, and they become our enemy because we shoved down their throat a dictator for 25 years and stole their oil and natural resources for 25 years. If you study these Americans' coups around the world, there are videos you can even watch online, CIA covert operations and U.S. interventions. So do a search that and you get plenty of them that have the similar things. And those countries like Iran, and if imagine they considered our enemy now, but they have the capability to hit back. So it becomes more dangerous because once we try to threaten them and do something, they hit us back. Now they can reach here too, America too, because they have those technology to do. You see, and they are in alliance with countries in the Central America and in other parts of the world that are close to us. So it could create a network, could hurt us, damage our infrastructure, hurt our people, and make our world unsafer for us. So the people who say we don't care, we have the power, we have to do this to them and get them in, I have a news for them that those people now they can hit us back. And if you watch the news, you see that they already done that in places. And it just becomes the more we do it, the more dangerous they get, the harder they're going to hit, and the more we're going to suffer. So my intention from this is enlighten the ignorant who thinks that we can go and kill people and rape people, invade their countries. They cannot do anything. They can. If you don't know, you probably haven't go research a little bit more online, see if they have done it or not, and they still do it. So one other. Then the first bad result of this kind of activities supporting terrorism around the world is we train terrorism they're gonna come to roost at home. Remember all these what we see going on around America in the big towns, the police killing of an individual for $20, whereas another individual in America makes $176 billion net worth, like Amazon CEO or Jeff Bezos. I mean, he makes that, and then another one like George Floyd gets by police strangled on the corner of the street, murdered for $20. Now that guy who murdered him probably they have military background. Look at these guys. So this kind of behavior to support terrorism and support tyranny around the world, support dictators like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and invading countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Central America like Venezuela, and supporting coup d'etats to topple democratic elected governments like in Egypt or in some other part of the countries. These are going to make the people who live in those countries become our enemies. and they're going to create more terrorism because if they cannot fight the United States militarily, because U.S. says it spends over almost $1 trillion, $1,000 billion every year, to be exactly $993 billion in 2020 budget for military to wage wars and terrorism on the world. When we do that, those people, if they cannot find it with the same military might, get into asymmetric warfare, meaning supporting pockets of resistant various pressures of the world who can attack United States, and they're going to fund them. They're going to support them, and those people don't need much money because they already have the, their reason, because their families have been bombed by United States, their families have been killed by the soldiers, like in Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, all these bombs and committed killing thousands and hundreds of thousands of people in Yemen, in Syria, are United States arms. They are not Chinese or they are not Russians, as a matter of fact. They are American arms that was ISIS had more American arms than it, because Saudi Arabia, American puppet dictators with United States support, they gave ISIS the war. ISIS follows the same ideology that Saudi Arabia follows, Wahhabism. It doesn't follow the ideology of the Iranian or Afghans or Iraqis the United States destroyed. It follows the ideology of the American allies, like United Arab Emirates and Egypt and Saudi Arabia. You see how that goes? And they have arms that kills the people. So these people, when they don't need to be paid. That's why it doesn't cost them anything. It costs America, according to Trump, they spend almost $8 trillion in West Asia past 10, 20 years. What is the outcome? Nothing. United States trying to get out of Afghanistan as soon as it can, because it went to eliminate Taliban to fight terrorism. They call them terrorism. Now it's negotiating with terrorists to just safely exit. So nothing changes. A bunch of innocent people killed. Now all those innocent people killed, they have sister, brothers, or parents or relatives who may want to get revenge. So they become enemies, our enemies in the future. You see how that goes? So these kind of the ones who do not know it, America is doing that as a leader in war against third world independent nations. Now, through my book, they know they can say I don't know, and they can go research it themselves. I'm sure they come to the same conclusion through universities, not through media of mass deception. Media of mass deception, mainstream media, is owned by corporations. Their job is to manufacture consent, meaning they sell you what you don't need, including selling the information which is incorrect, to manufacture consent for the atrocities committed overseas, or even some of it inside the country, against the American people. Look at all these peaceful demonstrators. Why do you think in front of the White House, Lafayette Park, those demonstrators, they were peaceful, they were in arms, and then they attack them with gas, and but these are the same people who trained by terrorism, by go overseas killing those people, and they come back home and treat Americans who pay their wages and pay them, support them, they treat them the same way. Can you see that? So people know that, and people who say we don't care because it's not going to impact us, know that it will impact you, and it's going to get worse because as these countries numbers increase and they create a network like Iran right now, then becomes Saudi Arabia. There is a revolution there. It will be, because atrocity don't last forever. And there is in those Persian Gulf states, Arab, the revolution, all those arms the United States sells them, a billion, 60, $70 billion a year to Saudi Arabia. Those are going to fall into the hands of those future, you call them terrorists because you're going to use violence for a political aim, and they're going to increase terrorism against us, going to make us unsafe. The same way that all over the world, we go, if you have an American passport, you're not going to be as safe as maybe before, especially in the East Asia. In some of those countries that US has already, they have suffered directly from US. Maybe in part of Europe, you'll be okay. Europe, be okay, because some of the Europe support this kind of some of it, maybe in a moderate way, support this terrorism and discrimination, but not as heavily as United States leads it. So maybe in Europe, the United American passport probably has some sort of level relative security is not 100%, but in other part of the world is very insecure. And then this when these people unite network, the technology as is gone further and it become advanced, they can take actions against us. This one I say us, we, because I live here too, and I could be here too because I'm considered an American too. And the reason I'm saying this, I want to enlighten my countrymen and women, and that do not think that I don't care. They're not going to be able to reach us. They may be able to just, if you study past 20 years, the terrorist acts inside United States, outside, you see that they have been and they will become more if we don't stop this. So my suggestion now, what is my solution? Now I've said that. Now we is gaining according to the videos. I know we this is a subject that we can talk for hours on it, but in my previous videos, basically I uh, talked about this in detail. So now the solution would be we should call every senator and congressman and do not support the $1 trillion military budget. This military budget is used for destruction and killing, invasion, occupation. Is not defending America. Is that is another misinformation. America's borders, I've said that before, is North Canada, South Mexico, East Atlantic, West Pacific Ocean. What is American soldier doing in North in Korea, other side of the world, or in East Asia, where is right now if it's day here is night there? What is American soldier doing on the other side of the world protecting America's borders? So it's not protecting America. It is there promoting terrorism, supporting terrorism, because it's using violence against ordinary people. Because occupation, you have to sometimes use violence to get people to obey you in those countries. Because nobody do anybody here likes America to be occupied? How would we treat an occupying military power comes to America and topples our government, put a puppet government in power in the White House, and then they roll the streets here freely. We cannot prosecute them. They can commit any crime because they have guns, and if we pick up the guns, they kill us. Now, do we are they terrorists or we are the one who are fighting our home are terrorists? So terrorists are the ones who are fighting the occupation. The people who invade other countries, they occupy a country, they kill women and kids, and they kill the natives, they rape them, they occupy their home or their country they, without invitation, and they're using violence to overcome the resistance and control the country. They're using violence for a political aim, a definition of terrorism. Those are terrorists. The people who are fighting and they're fighting the occupation. They're fighting the troops that are occupy their country. By definition, they are not terrorists. They are actual freedom, the true freedom fighters. So you see what I'm talking about here? Now, the people who are uh, defending their home, they are not terrorists. So the people who invade their countries, they are terrorists. So according to the law of the United States, everybody has the right to defend his home, defend against terrorism, which invaded his home. So we cannot blame Afghans, Iraqis, or Yemenis, or other peoples, or even in Korea or in Japan, or people if they fight the occupying power, the occupying military. How can they be terrorists by definition? You see what I'm saying? I'm going based on definition. I'm not saying this make this up. So if definition of terrorism is being changed in the then I need to know, because wherever I read, terrorism is use of violence against ordinary people for a political aim, or use of violence for a political aim. All of these applies here. When American troops invade another country like Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Iran, or any place, Nicaragua, Cuba, when those people live born in this country, they are citizens of that country. When they resist occupation, they are not terrorists. If somebody tells you, they're taking advantage of your ignorance. Because read the definition of terrorism. So now this called terrorism. Now we said how we get this resolved. The result is to require from representatives the government do not donate them or call them, or vote for the ones who do not support war, invasion, occupation. Why do America have to have? Why does America have to have 800 military bases in over 150 countries? I mean, why does America have to occupy Japan or, for example, Germany, who, for their America, or South Korea, or Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Yemen, all these countries against the will of their people because they haven't been invited there. And then if they oppose it, then they label them as terrorists. See, that is misinformation. That is a lie. So the solution to make us safer would be for America to pull the troops out of those countries, and then the 100 trillion to become a normal country. I mean, Pompeo, Moscow Mike, he said his opposition with the Iranian government is because Iran is not a normal country. Why is not? Because Iran is not willing to become a armed clients of United States like Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and UAE, and use that arm to kill, oppress or suppress his own people like these puppet dictators do. So United States can go in there and take their resources very cheap and steal their resources, basically. This is the fact. I mean, if it's not, and I'd like to know that. This is the conclusion I come up after doing 20 years of research. You see? Now, you should call the representative and ask him to not support this war. Do not, just Congress last week passed the military budget. A week ago, maybe 10 days ago, the Democratic Congress passed the bill, the annual budget for military, close to $1 trillion, whereas the Congress is fighting over $400 to give Americans. You know, they were giving typical Americans who were unemployed $600 a week. Now they want to cut it to $200, and they killed George Floyd for $20 on the corner of the street. But the budget for military to promote terrorism, invasion, occupation, and wars for almost 1 trillion, 1,000 billion dollars. So certain individual, a minority in this country, a Trump's base, they can make billions again. But Americans are not allowed to get $400. They're starving. Over 30 million Americans are unemployed now. Addition. See, uh, if somebody cares for America, should care for Americans, the people. Because if these people, the way it's going right now, the poverty is increasing. Yeah. And because the money that we should spend on building the infrastructure of this country, America. See, American infrastructure was roadways, bridges, basically was built in 1950s. with a 50-year lifespan, which has already outlived its lifespan by almost 20 years, 2 decades. That's why on winters you see bridges falling apart and a bunch of people die. These money, hundreds of billions of dollars that are spent on destruction and supporting puppet dictators, promoting terrorism, promoting wars, invasion, occupation, and protecting and promoting racism based on religion and in, all over the world based on a national religion, building nations based on one religion. On one hand, America claims to be this claims that discrimination against religion, national origin, is an idea is against the law, but on the same token, it supports one religion state with all the powers. As I'm saying, for if the Christians say that in the Bible says we have to support the one religion, Judah, the state of Israel, to discriminate against native borns and evict them and kill them, massacre them, and anybody who has considered with Jewish root can go in Israel, get free land, have given money and home, and demolish somebody's home and lived there for thousands of years ago. That's terrorism too. But they say that our religion books says that. There's a verse in Bible that says that I've reviewed the religious books. But even if that's the case, the first claim is the claim that God is a racist, gives land, and then because Christianity accepts racism and supports. That's why slavery was basically mainly Christianity and support slavery and discrimination. But that is this is another lie to using the ignorance of the society against them to fool them, basically fooling the fools, because Jesus says that hypocrite is hypocrite blames only other guy for the same crime. That is Jesus' favorite of Trump and U.S. administration and the people, evangelists who say they are Christians and they are supporting discrimination and racism to build one religion state to fulfill a religious obligation. But what is about that obligation that says hypocrite only blames other guy for the same crime? Meaning that if you supporting one religious state in 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 Israel to demolish the land, then where is it going to end? One thing it starts with racism. America experienced racism, and still America nothing changed in slavery. I think this is what you hear on the news. This is only show business in racism in the fabric of this society. And this system is built on racism. That's why he spends all his money to support racism in other places of the world. Like if you say, okay, we're going to have one religion state, Jewish state, and we support that, everybody else with other religion in that state don't have any rights, we have the right to demolish their home, kick them out like we have done millions of them, and put another person just because he claims to be Jew and may not be, has another intention behind it that's hidden in these religious claims to fool the fools, because that's the lie. It's because the natural resources of West Asia, United States, wants to have the biggest military base, which is Israel, and helps it expand according to fulfill their religious claim with borders including Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean and the Arabia. That's why Israel doesn't have a border right now, because the ultimate borders, if you dig into this and read it, includes all of the West Asia and Arabia and Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean to be one country called Israel. That's the ultimate goal. Then, if you support one religion state like that, discrimination, then it gives justification for Islamic state to come on board. And I guess US doesn't mind that, because if as long as they're fighting, you can sell arms and make money. See, that's another thing. So basically, the main agenda behind all of this is money, but they use the religious claim to fool the fools that believe in those rhetoric. A book written thousands of years ago maybe they say decades or 100 years after the Jesus died, and multiple version, and then somebody wrote it to meet a certain cause, to fools the one who are ignorant to believe this religious claim. And but in the hidden, they are the ones who have monetary interested. Who doesn't like to get a free piece of land on the Mediterranean Ocean? Who doesn't like to also get money to build a house for himself there? Now they say they bring the Jews because Christianity believe in Judaism. Judaism became before Christianity. Now they use this religion claims to support it, to support the greed, which is the actual cause, the main reason to do that. So make it a religious, to get religious conflict, to make people's emotion rattled up, so they're willing to die for it and justify it to the ignorant. But actually is money, you see. So, but this kind of behavior, Truman, is like mafia. I mean, the United States, if you read the history of United States, it started with, I said that, with when this continent of United States was discovered, there were 138 million Indians, native Indians lived here. Now there are less than 5 million. What happened? They killed all of them, ethnic cleansing. So the country was discovered, this place, occupied the land through ethnic cleansing, and then brought the blacks and make them a slave. And then after that, by wars, invading the countries. I see, this is the history of the United States summary in 2 minutes. Now, if you read that, you see something else, let me know. But that's basically the thing. Now you can read more details into this. Now, what do you expect that is still going on right now, but it is in a modern way, in a modern slavery. Modern slavery is controls people's mind, manufacture consent, manufacture consent by misinformation, disinformation, to fool the people that they think they're going to the other side of the world to fight to defend America. Whereas maybe he doesn't, the guy is so ignorant and educated, he doesn't know the borders are right here, and nobody trading these borders. If, as I said, if these borders that I live in threaten, I be volunteering the first person to go fight, defend America's border to Atlantic Ocean, to Canada, Mexico. But going to another country, that's not defending America's border. That is invasion, occupation, that is terrorism. That's state-sponsored terrorism, because that's using violence for a political aim. Political aim is to control that region so we can steal their natural resources. You see how that goes? Now, having said that, how do we make us more secure? Secure is by Congress, by putting pressure on the Congress and senators, and by talking about it more, making everybody aware of what is being happening around the world in our name, is basically crime against humanity, is terrorism, is not promoting freedom, democracy, and human rights. That's a big lie. That is to fool the fools. Otherwise, how could invading another country or dropping a 1 ton bomb, $1 million cost each, over some caveman in Afghanistan, promote democracy and human rights? If anything, promotes hatred and terrorism. You see? Now, how we can have peace when people are aware that do not support terrorism, do not support violence, do not make congressmen call him, vote for somebody who is opposed to war, not somebody who becomes a puppets of the military-industrial complex. And then demand from the government to pull out of these places. I mean, why is U.S. staying in Afghanistan now? Why did they go in there to begin with? Bin Laden was never in Afghanistan. He was in Pakistan, which is U.S. allies, was U.S. allies on the war against terror. Was United States gave billions of dollars over the past 20 years to Pakistan to do what? To just nurture more terrorists, to sending to Afghanistan to fight the American troops and kill American troops. They get killed and kill the Afghans. And now, after 20 years, United States wants to sit with Taliban, is sitting with Taliban and trying to make a deal with him to run away, and the same government will be in place. In Iraq, why is it keeping troops in Iraq? Because he wants to have control over Iraqi oil wells. But they're not going to let this happen. Then there's going to be more death probably if this continues in Iraq. The continue occupation continues in the East Asia. But those one thing United States needs to realize, the government of the United States was successful, America, in eliminating the Indians in America, ethnic cleansing, but Indians didn't have the belief that East Asia people do, and that's Islam. If you study about that religion, I've studied some. If you study about the religion, they believe if they fight defending their home, they go to heaven. So how many of them can you kill? There are 1.72 billion Muslims over there. Even 10% of them, you have to kill 20% of them to stop. And you have to kill 400 or 500 million people to be able to occupy them. And believe me, each of them are like a bomb, that they go off. And now they have atomic bomb, a bigger bomb that could do a lot more damage. And they have the missiles that could reach United States. You see how dangerous it's coming? That's why I'm panicking. I think if we want to be safe here, we need to bring our troops from those homes and stop meddling in other people's affairs. Is it too much to ask? And then invest that all those troops can be trained as engineers, as technicians, developing in the country, United States, rebuilding the infrastructure, rebuilding our healthcare system, and rebuilding our societies, our universities, put all this money in research and development, and make America come back up, becomes world number one, economy, technology, everything, keep the place and advance more. That it benefits American people a lot more than us invading other countries and making enemies and wars and killing and support terrorism and destruction, doesn't it? That is what I can do as an American living in this country to make America safer. I can only share with you the information that I have researched, the solution that I have come with, and that help everybody vote with your conscience. Do not believe what these crook psychopaths tell you. See their behavior, see the pattern, voting pattern, see who supports them, and if they don't do it, don't vote for them. And people do not lack the strength, people lack the will. Victor Hugo says people do not lack the strength, but they lack the will. Now if we have the will to make America a safer place, make America prosperous for everybody, so there is nobody in America sleeps without food, nobody in America is homeless, nobody in America doesn't have medical insurance, nobody is afraid to go to doctor because he can't afford the bill, nobody in America has to, when he does a surgery he has to file bankruptcy. If you want to world become a more if we want the world to become a more safer place, and in return, America becomes a safe and prosperous place for everybody, we need to support peace, understanding, and knowledge, and building rather than destroying, wars, terrorism, and violence. See, the problem with the Hollywood in America, the violence is glorified by Hollywood. Sex is glorified by Hollywood. All of these up to beyond the point is going to impact the people. It's going to people. I mean, a lot of these investments in the Hollywood is from military-industrial complex, maybe Pentagon and the ones who want to make money off the arms. They invest Hollywood to make these military movies and these military games, these fighting games. to get people ready to send them out, invade the other countries, and then kill a bunch of people and create more enemies and continuous war, continuous killing, continuous terrorism. See, that's why I'm saying media of mass deception. Hollywood is part of the media. What does it do? It only see promotes alcohol, drinking, sex, and violence. These three things are because they make money. A lot of people are making money off of this. But people die, they get ulcer, they get diseases, they go killed in the wars, they get killed, they get crippled. They basically how many people we have handicaps, and then when they come to this country, they either become police, some of them become homeless, because all they do is killing and violence and these things. So what do you expect them to do? They become a mercenary, professional killers. That's what these kind of policies, United States policies, produce. Unfortunately, it should produce. Unfortunately, is producing more of this kind of violence and criminals than it's producing scientists and doctors and engineers. And what we need more scientists, doctors, and engineers who are not professional killers. They're professional savers. How we can do that? By trying to reduce the violence in all aspects of the society. In our promoting violence is not freedom; it's freedom to be evil. When you say freedom is not promoting corruption and killing and terrorism, you are not free to do that because that could hurt other people. You're free up to a point that you don't over over step into another person's freedom. So freedom for everybody is you're free to promote peace, stability, coexistence, building, understanding, educating. Nobody agrees that if somebody should be free to cause violence, terrorism, destruction, hurt other people, lie and cheat and commit crimes. That's not freedom. That's evil. Freedom is to help build relationships, help another human being because that human being also owes you something, will help you. Now, if you go into another country and kill them, they're gonna kill one of them. The 100 other ones grow that want to get revenge, and imagine where that would end. You may be able to cut all the flowers, but you cannot stop the spring. That is by Che Guevara. He's right. You may be able to go into these countries and kill a few resist people who are resisting your occupation and terrorism, but you cannot kill all those people in there. If you kill them, that country is no good anymore, and there are going to be millions of people you're going to have to kill to overcome. Otherwise, the million become the few you killed, like 1,000 or 10,000. Believe me, there are another 200,000 or another million people going to get revenge. It's going to go. You have a bigger. You keep fighting a bigger force until they defeat you. That is the law of the nature. The good wins, the evil loses. Evil is war. Evil is occupation. Evil is discrimination. Evil is rape. Is is discrimination. Is supporting based on race, religion, color. These are evil. These are terrorism and only create enemy and I'm going to make the world a much unsafer place. But what can do is support peace, support coexistence, negotiation on the same level, respecting everybody's right, respect other countries, other nations' right to choose their own leaders, and we sit down and talk to the leaders. Unfortunately, America in the past history, if you study, contrary to what it claims that is fighting the war to promote democracy, human rights, and freedom, actually is fighting that, is fighting the war to topple democratically elected governments who people chose in those nations and replace them with puppet dictators Like in 1953, Iran, Guatemala, 1893, Hawaii, imagine, Nicaragua, 1903, or many times over, El Salvador, Cuba, Venezuela, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, I mean, either UK, the forefathers were the initiators up to World War II. After World War II, United States took over from the forefathers to do this. These need to stop before the world gets more unsafe. Even right now, you see this COVID-19, the virus was developed in a Wuhan lab in China, but who was funding that lab to research? It was funded by United States. United States has over 26, 30 laboratories all over West Asia, in Asia, doing research for chemical, biological warfare. And maybe there are, I read places that United States was researching this virus to slow down China's economy, and it backfired because it was brought up to United States too. See, there is an old saying that says you fight by the sword, die by the sword. So the world is not like it used to be. The world today is that in most countries who have been subject to United States crime within the past century, they got to the powerful to the point that can hit back as we have seen it past few years. And right now, this virus, look at how many Americans die. 100 and I was reading today, 159, almost 160,000. This is official data, but according to studies done by Boston Globe, MIT, the people infected with the virus around the world and even in the United States should actually, in reality, is 12 times of what it is. So meaning that probably a couple of million have died so far, and probably easily about 60, 70 million in America, 100 million already infected. That's why Trump is panicking, slowing down the testing, because the more tech these people who come on, testing doesn't increase the number infected, according to what Trump wants you to believe, because he is so ignorant, he thinks everybody else is like him. Testing only reveals who has it. In actuality, a lot of people have it, they haven't been tested. So testing we should be more so we can separate those people who stop it. But he doesn't want because he make money off of this. See, this virus is killing the old people, basically, like me, older people. So the system which only is looking after profit, it promotes all over the world. We say, remember, we say we're supporting one religion state or invading these countries and all of promoting terrorism is to sell arms and ultimately for profit, for money. So coronavirus is going to give the government that profit by killing the old people. The government has to don't have to pay Medicare, Medical so much is insurances, and insurance companies save money. They collect all these people from these all this money from these people for all the time they work 30, 40 years. Now they have to cover the payback. They die. You see, so maybe government Trump is slowing the testing, so more people die. The cost of the system comes down. See, because system is broke right now. America is 23, 24 trillion dollars in debt. You know, as you know, during the Trump administration, the debt has gone up $3 trillion more. I mean, Americans are more owe, but they don't have insurance. They're broke. So the country is broke. Everything's broke because the policy is wrong. It's about time. That's what I'm saying. Not everybody has time to go research. I have researched this. The time is to stop these wars, to bring these troops home, even from Syria, from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from Yemen. Stop supporting the mayhem on Yemeni people, the massacre of the poor Yemeni people. The Yemenis are so poor they don't have clothes. You see, they have like a towel around the thing because they cannot even afford clothes, afford food. You see their pictures. The famine is killing those people. Disease are killing them. And US is bombing them with $1 million bomb. With $1 million, you can feed all those people because they want to keep the Saudi Arabia puppet dictator in there so they can serve the agenda of terror in the world and in the region and support killing anybody, any dissent, anybody who opposes that. We are lucky we're in America. At least we have some sort of freedom to bring these subjects on. And anybody, any newsman, anybody who thinks I cannot, what I'm saying is a lie, is a propaganda, I can prove it scientifically with documents, which these documents are online. All you have to do is research them. There are videos of the actions, there are testimony of the people involved, even Ramsey Clark. I believe his name is Wesley Clark. I'm sorry, it's Wesley. I'm mixing it with another another person in the government. But Wesley Clark was the supreme NATO commander in Europe. And there is a book written by Bob Woodward, Plan of Attack. If you read that book, there is a part Bob Woodward says it in that book. And also, I saw a video from Wesley uh, Clark, NATO Supreme Commander on YouTube. I think you should be able to find a YouTube video. And the book Plano Attack by Bob Woodward. These both sources, they say that Wesley Clark says that he went to Pentagon one day and he sat down with one of the generals at the beginning of the Bush presidency, the Bush, the son, Herbert Walker Bush, I believe. He said he went to back then he was the NATO commander. He went to Pentagon, sit down with one of the generals, and the general took out a page out of his drawer and says, "These are 7 countries we want to invade." And guess who they were? Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, and Syria. And these countries, 7 countries names invade. And then Wesley says, I asked him why. And the general says, I don't know because we can't. But he wasn't told. But the agenda by Cheney and Bush and others was oil. Iraq has the third or fourth largest oil reserves. Afghanistan, they invaded. Iraq invaded. They surrounded Iran, and Iran was one of them next. But Iran has stopped. Iran is a nuclear power right now with missiles and nuclears who can really hurt any invader. So that slowed things down. Now, before this, Israel was expanding through wars, through Middle East to ultimately expand its borders to Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf, all of those areas. But with the Iranian revolution, they came to power and they built themselves up, become atomic. Now Israel is trying to build a wall to save what he has because they got Hamas on the north, Hezbollah on the south, and they got Iranians are in Syria on the border too in Syria. So they got surrounded from 3 sides. The only way Israel has is one side that's nobody not threatened is by the Mediterranean Sea and Jordan and Egypt, but no Egypt, Hamas is there. You see, now this is how this backfired. Now, if the United States hasn't interfered in Iran in 1953 to topple the democratically elected government of Dr. Mossadegh in 1953, they would have a government. It was Western educated. It was a lawyer, and it was not religious, secular government, and a country would have prospered, and U.S. would prosper, wouldn't have enemy, and the East Asia would prosper. But the true support of dictatorships and terrorism and invasion and war, United States basically has put the world on fire. And the kind of activities, the result has been these people who have been conducting these kind of terrorist activities, they have come home to roost. Now in the United States, we see these, the center of the cities, Americans against Americans, these police who are ex-militaries and federal agents who are ex-militaries, professional killers are attacking American youth and kill them and gas them in the streets of America. You see, the same terrorism has come home to roost. That's what I mean. Now, all of this can go away, but it needs United States to rethink its foreign policy to save Americans inside America. How to rethink it, promote dialogue with elected officials of different countries rather than trying to invade those countries and create war and support terrorism to overthrow the democratically elected government, to replace them with a puppet dictator like Saudi Arabia or these Arabs on the Persian Gulf, southern Persian Gulf, all of them, or even Jordan or Egypt, supporting dictators, coup d'etat governments with no elections only creates more terrorism and make us unsafe. So to correct the situation, to make us safer, is changing the foreign policy to impact a domestic policy. Deal, negotiate with the elected officials of the country. Help, if they don't have elected officials, help those countries without revolution before it's too late to take democratic measures, convince the puppet dictators to let their people elect a parliament, elect their own government, write a constitution which is democratic, is based on elections of the people. If America does that, in reality, then we won't have terrorism, we won't have threats inside the United States either, because those chickens won't come to roost at home, as they say. So there is solution, but we will have to one. If people who say we don't care, we have to, no, you have to care because your own security will be in danger. Our security will be in danger. We have to care. Injustice anywhere in the world is injustice everywhere in the world. So you can't say, screw them, let's go bomb them and kill them. Okay, they go kill them, we can kill all of them. As I said, there are 2 billion, there are 8 billion people around the world. How many can you kill? A million, 2 million, 10 million, 100 million? There's still going to be millions or more that want to get revenge. And this is going to go on, and they're going to may miss once, but one of them, they're going to hit a bunch of us, and we're going to get hurt as we have been hurt in the past. We don't want that. I don't want that. I want us to have peace. I want us to have security. And I want to have prosperity in America. I don't want any American to be homeless. I don't want any American to be hungry. I want every American youth to be able to go to college, to university, up to 4-year college without any accumulating $100 million of debt. And I don't want any American youth to go into other countries and die because some individual, a few handful individual want to make their billions more by selling arms and products in those countries, shoving it down their throat to create more enemies to come back and hurt us. I don't want that to happen. I want peace. So everything I said for the people who want peace, and there is a peaceful solution. Peaceful solution is to support policies that promote peace and negotiations with elected officials, not wars, not invasion, not racism, not one religion states. Do not support these policies. We'll have peace and security, and the whole world will have peace and security, and everybody would be better off. So I wish the best for everybody, and I hope someday we have peace and security all over the world, and this kind of craziness stops. Okay, and God bless you, and God bless peace. Thank you.